They said the war was over, that the vampires had surrendered, that the last demand was simple, just one woman. She was cold, beautiful, and Riker took her as payment for peace. But from the moment he touched her hand, his fate began to twist. His nights grew darker, his blood ran hotter, and the whispers, they warned him. She's not a gift. She's a curse wearing red lips. He didn't listen. And now, the thing she was hiding is finally waking up. Welcome to a new tale of power, blood, and forbidden love. I'm Michael, your narrator, and the voiceover artist for this channel. Let's begin. She was payment for peace, but she was never meant to be given. She was dangerous, beautiful, and already broken. He took her anyway, and now, something dark has followed him home. This isn't just a love story. It's the beginning of something terrifying, a war that never truly ended. And it all started with a girl found in a scrap dump. They thought she was weak, but they forgot one thing. Even broken glass can still cut deep. Now, let me tell you how it all began. It started on the last day of the Vampire War. Captain Riker stood on the edge of a ruined city, smoke rising behind him, vampire blood drying on his sword. He had won. The enemy king was dead. The vampires had fallen. But in this war, victory had a price. And that price came walking toward him from the heart of the enemy castle, barefoot, in chains, with eyes like cold fire. She was the Vampire King's daughter. Her name was Nyssa, and she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She only looked at Riker, like she already knew what came next. She was the final demand of the peace treaty, the last offering, a living symbol of surrender. Some called it a gift. Some called it a curse. Riker didn't speak. He just looked into her eyes and took her hand. They called her the scrap dump girl because that's where she lived now, a broken part of the city where old machines were thrown away. Riker didn't keep her in chains. He didn't lock her away. But he didn't trust her either. How could he? She slept in a cold room under his roof. Alone. No blankets, no fire. And yet, she never complained. The soldiers whispered. They said Riker was cursed. They said he should have killed her. They said she was planning something. But Riker didn't care. Something in her silence made him curious. Something about her stillness, like a storm waiting behind her eyes. One night, Riker found her in the uncured. She stood between dead robots and broken tanks, her pale hands touching cold metal, as if she could hear the memories inside. "Why are you here?" he asked. She turned, slowly, and gave a small smile. "This is where broken things go," she said. "I feel at home." Her voice was soft, like wind through bones, and when she looked at him, it felt like she saw straight through his armor. Days passed. Weeks. He brought her food. She never thanked him. She never begged. She just stared at the sky, or read old books, or sat near the fire like a statue of shadow and flame. But at night, Riker couldn't sleep. He kept hearing things, a soft humming in the dark, footsteps that stopped when he turned around, whispers that came from empty rooms. Nyssa never left the house, but somehow her presence was everywhere. One evening, a soldier tried to hurt her. He cornered her near the stables, laughed, and reached for her face. The next morning, he was found unconscious, his eyes wide open, his mouth frozen in a silent scream. He never spoke again. No one saw what happened. No one asked questions. But that day, no one ever touched her again. Riker started watching her more, not out of fear, but fascination. Who was she really? A prisoner? A survivor? Or something else? She had the eyes of someone who had lived 1,000 lives, and the way she looked at Riker wasn't like a slave looking at her master. It was something else, something older, something dangerous. And one night, when the firelight danced in her eyes, she whispered just loud enough for Riker to hear. "You didn't win the war, Captain. You only opened the door to the real one." Riker didn't know what she meant, but her words followed him like a shadow. "You didn't win the war. You only opened the door." He tried to forget, tried to push it down. But every night the feeling grew. Something was wrong with him. Something inside was shifting. His heart beat louder. His dreams felt real. And when he closed his eyes, he could hear her voice, whispering his name. One morning, he woke up covered in sweat. Not from fear, but from heat, a burning heat inside his chest. He looked at his hands. They were shaking, and on his arm, a mark. Faint, dark red, like something had bitten into him while he slept. He rushed to her room. She was already awake, standing at the window. "I didn't touch you," she said calmly. But he did. Riker froze. "Who?" She turned, slowly. Her eyes glowed faintly in the light. "The one your people forgot. The one who sleeps beneath the ashes." Riker was done with riddles. He grabbed her by the arm. "Tell me the truth. What did you bring with you?" She didn't pull away. She didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped closer, until her face was inches from his. "I told you I'm not a gift. I'm a message. From a place older than war, older than vampires, older than you." The next day, the sky turned gray. Birds disappeared. Animals went quiet. Soldiers grew sick, dreamed of fire and teeth and wings in the dark. And in the nearby villages, people started vanishing. No blood, no tracks. Just silence, like they were swallowed by the earth itself. Riker met with the council. They blamed Nysa. They wanted her gone, killed. "She cursed us!" one shouted. "She's feeding off us," another said. But Riker shook his head. "No, this isn't her doing." He remembered her words and the mark on his arm. It was deeper now, darker, like it was growing. That night he found her in the scrap dump again. She was standing still, barefoot, her hands covered in dirt. "What are you doing?" he asked. She didn't turn. "I'm listening." "To what?" She slowly opened her hand, revealing a small metal shard. On it, symbols that glowed faintly red. She looked back at him, and for the first time, her voice cracked. "It's awake now. It knows your name. It knows we're together." Riker stepped back. "What is it?" She looked up at the sky. Something that shouldn't exist. Something the vampires buried long ago. It sleeps beneath the bones of our kind. We fed it, with blood, with war, with pain. And when my father died, the seal broke. Riker didn't speak. He just stared at her. The girl he took as a trophy was now warning him about something worse than any war. And the worst part? He believed her. Later that night, as he sat alone by the fire, she joined him. Quiet, slow, barefoot again. She didn't speak at first, just watched the flames dance. Then she whispered, "Do you want to live, Riker?" He looked at her. What kind of question is that? Her eyes locked with his. Because if you do, then you'll have to stop being human. The flames cracked. The wind howled outside. And in the distance, something roared, deep beneath the ground. Not an animal, not a monster. Something older than fear. Riker stood up, but his legs were shaking. Not from fear, from change. His skin was hot. His heartbeat strange. He looked at Nyssa. "What did you do to me?" She stood too. "I saved you from dying like the rest. But now, you'll never be the same." Riker didn't sleep that night. The mark on his arm burned like fire, but it wasn't pain. It was something deeper, a signal, a warning. Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains. The sky bled red at the edges, though no sun had risen. And in the wind, there were whispers, voices speaking in a language he didn't know, but somehow understood. Nyssa stood in the hallway, watching him from the shadows. He was changing. She could feel it. The blood she gave him, not through bite but through bond, had opened something inside him. A door, a crack, a flame in dry grass. And once it starts burning, it never stops. "You need to tell me everything," Riker said, standing in her doorway. His voice was low, steady, but his eyes looked different. Darker, sharper, not entirely human. Nyssa didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked to him, touched his hand, and said softly, "If I tell you, you can't go back. Not in your heart, not in your blood." "I'm already past that," he said. She nodded once, and then she spoke. There was a god once, buried under the vampire homeland, far below stone, fire, and bone. We fed it war, so it would sleep. It drinks fear. It eats memory. It doesn't walk. It rises when the blood of enemy and air mix. Riker felt cold. "What does that mean?" Nyssa met his eyes. "You are the enemy. I am the air, and we are now bound." Lightning split the sky. The ground trembled for a second, just enough to feel. And then came the noise. Low, deep, like metal grinding under stone. Soldiers ran through the streets. Windows shattered. Animals fled into the hills. A tower on the city's edge crumbled with no warning. No fire. No weapon. Just gone. They called it an earthquake. But Riker knew better. This was a summoning. The Red Storm had begun. Inside the council chamber, panic ruled. Old men shouted, advisors cursed, maps burned in. "Candle flame! She's the source!" one screamed. "We kill the girl! We end this!" Riker stepped forward. His voice didn't shout. It cut through like a blade. "Touch her, and I'll burn this whole place down myself." They fell silent, because they knew something was different now. Something in Riker had changed, and no one was ready to test him. That night, Nyssa showed him the scars on her back. They weren't from chains. They were symbols. cut deep into her skin, as a child. "I was born to be a door," she said. "Not a princess, not a warrior, just a key to let the old one rise." Riker stepped closer. The marks on her back glowed, faintly, and the one on his arm burned in response. "We're connected now," he said quietly. "Not by choice, but by fate." Suddenly the wind slammed the window open. Red mist poured into the room like smoke. The candles died, and outside, they heard them. Figures in black robes, marching through the streets, faces hidden, voices chanting. Vampire cultists. The ones loyal not to Nissa's father, but to the sleeping god beneath the earth. One broke from the group, stared up at Riker's window, and smiled with teeth too sharp to be human. He raised a hand, and fire burst from the ground in a circle. A message. A challenge. They were calling for the blood-bound pair to join the end, or be buried in it. Riker stood beside Nyssa. The city was shaking. The old ones were waking. The humans feared him. The vampires hunted her. But together, they were something else now. Not man, not monster. Something new. And when Riker looked at Nyssa, he saw it clearly for the first time. She wasn't his prisoner. She was his future. "Let them come," he whispered. "Let the red storm fall. We'll face it together." The blood moon rose that night, huge, glowing red, like an eye watching from the sky. It wasn't natural. It wasn't weather. It was a sign, a warning. And only Riker and Nyssa understood what it truly meant. The cultists gathered outside the city walls, hundreds of them. Some with pale skin and silver eyes, others wearing bone masks, all chanting the name of the thing that slept beneath the earth. Riker stood on the wall, sword in hand, but his heart wasn't calm, because tonight was not a battle. Tonight was a choice. Back inside the chamber, Nyssa traced the glowing mark on Riker's arm with her fingers. It pulsed beneath his skin, like it was alive. He winced. "Will it kill me?" he asked. She shook her head. "It'll change you first. Break you. Then ask what's left to kneel." He stared at her. "I won't kneel. Not to it. Not to anything." She looked up, and for the first time, he saw fear in her eyes. "Then we need to bind it. Together. Tonight. Before it binds us." They stood in the ruins of an old chapel. Moonlight poured through the shattered ceiling. Nyssa cut her palm. The blood glowed softly, like red stars. She handed him the dagger. He hesitated, then cut his own. Their blood mixed on a stone altar. And in that moment, the ground groaned beneath their feet. Not cracked, groaned. Like something below was listening. Nyssa placed her hand on his chest, over his heart. "Say the vow, Riker, or the storm will take you." He didn't look away. "I vow blood to blood, not to the gods, not to the old ones, but to you." She repeated after him, voice shaking. "I vow bone to bone, not to fear, not to fate, but to you." The wind stopped. The moonlight dimmed, and somewhere in the dark, the cultists stopped chanting, because they felt it. The bond had been sealed, not by magic, not by power, but by choice. And that scared them. Back in the city, people whispered. They saw Riker's eyes, sharp and burning. They saw Nissa's skin, glowing slightly under the moon. They weren't human. Not anymore. They were something in between, a blade forged of two enemies. The council tried to stop them, tried to raise walls, tried to separate them. But Riker smashed the table in the war room, and Nissa's stare made grown men look away. They were done asking for permission. When the cultists attacked, they came in silence. No drums, no screams, just red eyes in the fog and cold steel in their hands. They burned homes, snatched the weak, carved strange runes into stone and skin. But Riker was ready. So was she. The first kill was his. A robed figure with claws instead of fingers. Riker's blade cut through like fire through paper. Nissa moved like shadow. Her feet didn't touch the ground. Her hands moved faster than thought. Her mouth opened, and for a moment, she looked like something ancient. Not monstrous, not ugly, just eternal. Together, they cut through the cult like wolves in a sheepfold. But in the middle of it all, one figure stood still. Tall, silent. No face, just a black mask with a golden tear. He pointed at Riker and whispered one word, "Chosen," then vanished in the mist. After the fight, Riker and Nissa stood in the ashes. The city had survived, but barely, and the mark on Riker's arm had changed again. Now it had a shape, a symbol. It looked like an eye, closed, waiting to open. Back in their chamber, Riker sat in silence. His hands were shaking. "Did we win?" he asked. Nissa sat beside him. "No, but we didn't lose either. That means we still have a chance." He looked at her. Her face, her scars, her fire, all the things that should have made him afraid. But he wasn't. He reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't pull away. Outside, the blood moon faded, but the wind carried something with it, a whisper from deep below the mountains. They made the vow. Now we test if they can survive it. The city didn't sleep after the blood moon. No one did. Every crack in the wall, every shadow behind a door, felt like it was watching. And Riker's arm still burned. Not from pain anymore, but from a pull, a direction. Like something, or someone, was calling him. Nissa knew what it meant. "He's here," she said. "The one behind the cult, the one beneath the earth. He wears no face, because he becomes whoever sees him." Riker clenched his fists. That figure in the fog, the black mask. She nodded. That was him, the faceless one. "He knows your name now. He's not coming to kill you. He's coming to offer something." They left the city at first light. The people were afraid, but no one stopped them. Some said they were cursed. Some said they were chosen. All Riker knew was this: he had to face whatever was waiting before it reached the people he swore to protect. And Nissa, she walked beside him, silent, eyes locked on the horizon, like she knew what was coming. They traveled through the dead woods. Trees stood like bones. No wind, no birds, just silence and ash. And then, they found it. A ruin in the shape of a face, eyes hollowed by time. A door where the mouth should be. Nissa froze. This is one of the doors. They call it the Whispering Maw. He speaks through it when he wants to make a deal. Riker stepped forward. The mark on his arm burned brighter. Blood pushed through the veins in his neck. His heartbeat slowed, but hit harder. He could hear whispers, thousands of them, crawling in his ears. But only one voice stood out, low, calm, and endless. "You are tired, warrior, tired of blood, tired of choices. Let me offer you peace." Riker didn't answer. "I can make the pain stop. I can return the dead. I can give you a world without war. All I ask is her." Silence. Then Riker laughed. But it wasn't joy. It was fury. "Of course," he whispered. "Red. She was never a gift. She was bait." Nyssa didn't look at him. She was staring at the ground, hands shaking, eyes wet. "If you give me to him, he will honor his word. The faceless one never lies, because he doesn't have to." Riker didn't move. Then, slowly, he reached for his sword. "He can take my soul, but not my choice." The door in the ruin cracked, split in half, and from within, fog spilled out. Then a figure walked forward, tall, black robes that floated above the ground, no feet, no sound, and a smooth black mask with one gold tear right over where the eye should have been. Riker raised his blade, but the faceless one only tilted his head. "You would raise steel against peace?" "No," Riker said. "I raise it against liars." The faceless one stepped closer. With every step, Riker felt like gravity was breaking, like the air was heavier, like his bones wanted to drop. Nyssa screamed, not in fear, in rage. She raised both hands, and her veins glowed with ancient fire. Marks on her back burst with light, symbols floating in the air. "You want my blood?" she shouted. "Then drink it in flames!" A blast of red light threw the faceless one back. He vanished into the fog, but not before whispering, "This is not a battle. It is a countdown." Later that night, Riker sat beside a dying fire. His arm was glowing red like iron, his skin blistered. Nyssa sat beside him, but didn't speak. She just placed her hand on his chest again, and for the first time, he leaned into her. No armor, no shield, just breath and silence. "The faceless one will return," she whispered. "He always does." Riker didn't flinch. "I'll be ready." Nyssa looked at him, and something in her voice cracked. "I'm not afraid of him. I'm afraid of what you'll become when you fight him." Riker looked into her eyes. "Then don't let me become it alone." The fire had gone cold, but Riker still burned. Not on his skin, but in his soul. The mark on his arm was no longer just glowing. It was alive. Beating like a second heart. Whispering. Calling. And the call was getting louder. Nyssa stayed close. She watched him from across the old temple ruin, eyes tired, lips silent. He hadn't slept in days. Not really. He closed his eyes and saw faces. Men he'd killed. Friends he couldn't save. A throne made of bones, and at the center of it all stood the faceless one. "We have to break the bond," Nyssa said one morning. Riker didn't look at her. He was sharpening his sword. "The mark isn't just a curse," she said. "It's a lock. The longer you carry it, the closer he gets. You're becoming a door, Riker. Just like I was." He finally looked up. "What happens if we break it?" Her eyes lowered. "I survive. You don't." Silence. The sword stopped moving. Riker stood, walked to her, and placed his hand gently on her cheek. "Then we don't break it." She blinked. "You'll die." He nodded. "But I'll die free." That night, they found the Soul Forge. It was buried deep inside the mountain ruins, a place Nyssa remembered from her childhood, though it had been abandoned for centuries. The Soul Forge was not made of fire. It was made of memory, a circle of stone, surrounded by statues of people who had once made deals. Heroes, traitors, ghosts, all turned to stone. At the center stood a pedestal, a dagger, a mirror. Riker stepped into the circle. The mark on his arm pulsed brighter. He turned to Nyssa. "What do I do?" She whispered. "You must face yourself, not with your sword, but with truth." He stepped forward, looked into the mirror, and what he saw wasn't him. It was a version of himself, crowned in fire, with Nyssa's blood on his hands. He stepped back, breathing hard, sweat on his brow. The voice came again.
From the mirror, from the ground, from inside his chest. "Take her blood, claim your strength, save your people, be the weapon they need." Riker stared, fists clenched, teeth grinding. "I won't hurt her. You already have, the moment you brought her home." Suddenly the statues cracked. Dust fell. Whispers filled the forge. The Faceless One was not there, but his voice was everywhere. "You want freedom, Riker? Then kill your love, break the bond, be the hero, or let her destroy you." Nyssa stepped into the circle, tears in her eyes, blood running from her palm. She held out her hand. "Take it." He shook his head. "No. Please," she said. "You can stop him. Just take my blood." But Riker didn't move. He dropped the sword and held her hand, gently. "I don't need to be a god. I just need you." Suddenly, the forge lit up. A red flame surrounded them. But it didn't burn. It wrapped them in light. The bond didn't break. It changed. It deepened. The mark on Riker's arm turned gold, and Nyssa's eyes glowed bright silver. A voice echoed, not from the Faceless One, but from deeper, older. They chose love, not power. Let them carry the flame and be tested. The forge collapsed. The statues crumbled. The dagger shattered. And when the dust cleared, Riker and Nyssa stood in the ruins. Not gods, not cursed. Something new. Back at the city gates, the sky had turned black. The sun was hidden behind clouds. Ash rained like snow. The Faceless One had returned, not in whispers, but in form. A towering shape without a face. Robes like smoke, eyes across its chest, blinking slowly. The people ran. The soldiers hid. But Riker walked forward, Nyssa beside him, both glowing, both steady. The final battle had begun. The sky had no stars that night, only black clouds and falling ash. The people of the city locked their doors. They prayed. They wept. Some just waited to die. But two figures stood at the gate, unshaken. Together, Riker and Nyssa. The Faceless One waited in the field beyond the walls, tall as the spires, robes moving without wind, dozens of blinking eyes across its chest, its arms, even its legs. But its face, still smooth, still empty, waiting. Riker stepped forward, his arm glowing gold, his veins burning with fire and memory. Nissa walked beside him, her eyes silver, her hair lifted by energy. Symbols floated behind her in the air, the marks of her bloodline. They were no longer prey, no longer bound by curse or throne. They had chosen this, and choice was power. The Faceless One spoke without speaking. Its voice filled the air, like thunder, like whispers, like every word ever said at once. You defied me. You broke the chain. But you cannot stop the flame from burning out. There is no victory, only survival. Choose one. Riker raised his sword. No. The Faceless One tilted its head. You would rather die than serve peace? Nissa answered this time. We'd rather die free. The earth cracked. Lightning struck the field, and the Faceless One moved. Faster than thought. Shadows bursting like waves, its arms stretched into blades, its eyes bled fire. It attacked, and they met it. Riker was no longer just a soldier. His sword moved with light. Each swing echoed like thunder. Every hit broke the ground. Nissa spun through the air. Her hands burst with magic. Ancient fire, vampire blood turned to light. Her body moved like music, but her strikes were pure violence. They fought as one, back to back, step for step. But the Faceless One was endless. Every time they struck it down, it formed again. Smoke, mist, memory. It laughed without sound. You fight me, but I am not a thing. I am the fear behind every choice. I am what lives after hope dies. Riker dropped to one knee, his chest heaving, his sword heavy. Nissa was bleeding, her light flickering. The Faceless One towered over them. Say the word. Give me the girl, and I'll leave this world untouched. Riker looked up, eyes burning. Then he stood, held out his hand to Nissa. She took it, and together, they whispered, "We give you nothing." In that moment, their bond lit like wildfire. The mark on Riker's arm flared, not gold, not red, but white, pure, blinding. Nissa's symbols lifted into the sky. They formed a circle around the Faceless One. A prison, a truth, a final flame. The Faceless One screamed, not in pain, but in shock. What is this? Nissa stepped forward, voice shaking. This is the vow you didn't expect, a bond not made in blood, but in love. Riker gripped his sword and drove it into the earth. And love ends you. The ground split. Light poured upward. The field turned white. The Faceless One roared, then folded inward, eyes shut. Smoke vanished. The sky cleared, and the final whisper fell silent. The sun rose. For the first time in weeks, it was warm, real, alive. The people came out. The city breathed again, and Riker stood with Nissa in his arms, blood on her lips, tears in his eyes. She was alive, barely, but alive. Later, as they sat beneath a quiet sky, she whispered, "Did we win?" He held her close. "No, we just survived. And maybe that's better." They didn't rebuild the palace. They built something smaller, something real. Not a throne, a home, No servants, no swords, just peace, for as long as it lasted. Because they knew darkness always returns. But next time, it won't find them weak. It will find them ready. Together. The end.